Call meeting to order and ask for a roll call.
Blunier. Here. Hilliard.
Here.
Leach.
Here.
Metal.
Here.
Newman.
Here.
Parrott.
Here.
We have quorum.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are no public hearings this morning or presentations or this evening, presentations or special reports. Public comment. Anyone like to make a comment at the mic? Public? Okay, if not, the consent agenda is the approval of the minutes.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
I believe so.
So I did.
Okay.
I didn't know if anybody else wanted to.
Okay.
So I had 5 minutes for that.
Yep. Just introduce yourself.
My name is Kyle McMurtry. My name is Kyle McMurtry. I am the owner of the property at 226 North 2nd Street. First off, I want to say that I've been a proud member of this community for almost 32 years now. I was born and raised here, graduated from Morton in 2009. I was a good student and a 3-sport captain. I worked for the village of Morton for 4 summers. I've never been in any real trouble. I feel like overall I've been a good representation of this community. That brings me to my dad. My dad's name is Tony McMurtry. For close to 30 years, my dad worked on the street department for the village of Morton. I imagine he was liked by most, but he was respected by more. He's a man of honesty and integrity. He wanted things done right. As much as he may have complained, my dad always took pride in the work he did here. That brings me to June 27th, 2015. That's the day I learned that my parents had died in a wreck. In a split moment, the whole foundation of my life had crumbled. What seemed like the very next day, I was handed all of my parents' belongings and responsibilities, including the house on 2nd Street. I was not ready for any of that. I spent the next 2 years of my life completely isolated and never left my house. It was then 2017 when I was first issued a ticket for the property on 2nd Street. Officer Watts dropped it off and told me if I called the city, they would probably drop the fines. The tickets were for missing siding, debris, and car parts in the yard. I was still isolated at the time, so it was easiest for me to just pay the fines rather than to talk to anybody. Naive me thought that that was the easiest way for me to resolve the issue. Then 2018, I started getting summons to appear in court. That's when I started talking to Pat McGrath and realized how significant of an issue this was. I just didn't know any better. That's when I found out the city had put a lien on the property for $23,600 for the fines that had accumulated. I had no idea I was getting fined daily. I had full intentions of resolving this issue. I went as far as paying $8,000 to have the house sided, cleaned up the yard, and had plans to fix the porch and do all the touch-ups needed. Unfortunately for me, I started to struggle again in 2019. That's when my grandma stepped in to help me because she knew I needed the support. We were getting work done on the house and thought the issue was resolved. Then the craziness of COVID started. To make things worse, April 6, 2020, I also learned that my Aunt Patty had passed away. She was the last remaining relative on my mom's side, so it was like her side of the family. I had closed the book on her side of the family. That was the final straw. It kind of set me back into my isolated stage that I was in before. I remained in that state until about a few months ago. 3 years ago, I was lucky enough to find a woman that loves me, despite having to put up with all my problems. Found out in June I was going to be a dad. It was the first time since my parents wrecked that I felt like I had purpose. Unfortunately, we did lose the baby, but however brief it was, that inspiration is the reason I'm here today. I do feel guilty about using the things I've been through as an excuse. It's just unfortunately my story. I don't say these things for sympathy. I'm proudly standing here today confronting this issue. I wouldn't have been able to do this a year ago. The only thing I'm asking for is a little understanding. I don't think I've been through normal circumstances that have gotten me to this point. Despite all the obstacles I've faced, I never tried to dismiss the seriousness of the situation or undermine anyone. I tried to do what I was capable of doing. Like I said in the beginning, I'm a proud resident of Morton. When my girlfriend is able, we plan on moving back here to raise our family. I love this community. From what I have been told, the members of the board are the ones with sole authority on this issue and the lien against the house. I got a letter about 2 months ago that, from my understanding, the lien is being used to foreclose against the property. All I am wanting to do here tonight is to introduce myself and prove that I am serious about resolving this issue. Sorry, I lost where I was at. All I'm wanting to do here tonight is introduce myself and prove that I'm serious about resolving this, and hope to have a conversation with someone so that all parties can come away happy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kyle. Anyone else like to make a comment?
Sorry, I don't have anything written down, but I have actually been,
You want to introduce yourself?
yes, I'm Scott Morrow Jr. I have been a resident since 2019. I know that the lawyers and all that were trying to say the house is vacant, but that is not correct. I have multiple Morton utilities, signatures, everything I paid for. The house has not been vacant for the last 3 years. I have been maintaining the house myself, plus doing work on the house myself. For it to say that it's been vacant for 3 years is ridiculous. I have been there for 3 years now, and maintaining it and doing as much as we actually can to be respectable neighbors. And Officer Noble lives right down the street from me. I know him very well. All of the neighbors, you can ask everybody that lives around us, we're respectable and we take care of what we have to do. There have been problems with all this other stuff, but I will stand here right now and I have more than enough evidence to show that that house has not been vacant and it has been well maintained. Maybe the grass might not got mowed right away. I work a lot of hours, but at the same point, from what my cousin also said, the place has been taken care of and we can only do as much as we can. We don't have a lot of money. We can only just do as much as we can obviously do. So that's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comment? If not, the consent agenda tonight is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting, November 7th, 2022, and the closed session, November 7th, 2022, and the approval of the bills. Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any comments? Call the roll.
Parrot,
Yes.
Newman,
Yes.
Mennel,
Yes.
Leach,
Yes.
Hilliard,
Yes.
Blunier.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I have nothing tonight, village clerk.
Yes, there is one item tonight, Your Honor.
Okay.
After speaking with the Tazewell County, I called today to go over some election things. I wanted to give some new dates for the turning in of for the election. Before, it was a misunderstanding today, we called and cleared that up, that the dates previously were that they needed to be in starting today for ballots for trustee positions and whatnot, but they have informed me that it is going to be the first date to file on December 12th and the last date December 19th. So I want to make sure I cleared that up and got that out there as soon as I could to make sure that everybody knew.
So the
correct
first
dates.
date is December 12th.
Correct. The first
To the
official
19th.
date will be the 12th, 19th. I got additional information on that too. If for some reason we had a position or, a trustee spot open and vacant and nobody would have filled out the paperwork for that, you can still have a write-in ballot. However, the write-in, the deadline for that and everything is completely handled by Tazewell County. The only other thing that would be handled right now, which is in the packet for the trustee paperwork and to get the petitions and everything, there is something included that is an economic statement of interest. That, I found out today, also goes directly to the county, that I do not take that. So it's kind of two parts. So if you turn in the economic statement of interest, that will go to the county and you will get a receipt. And the bottom, it's just the bottom piece of the paper is the only long one. That is actually filed with your petition. So that would be something that needs to be handled beforehand that I cannot take. That has to be filed with them. They'll give you the receipt, and then you have to come back to me and turn that all in with the receipt. So a lot of new information. Wanted to make sure it was
So to
correct.
be clear on that, that economic interest needs to be done before they turn in their petition?
Correct. It needs to be filed. The receipt needs to be filed with me with the petition.
Okay, so they need to get that as soon as they can,
Correct.
but they can pick up the packets from you now.
Yes. Yep. Those are still
So-
available.
So the citizens can pick up their packets for
Yep.
trustee positions.
Correct.
They need to fill out their economic interest, get
Correct.
it mailed to Tazewell County.
Or dropped off there. Either one.
Okay.
Yes.
And get the receipt. Then come in to see you to turn in the petitions.
Right.
Along with the receipt.
Correct.
Okay.
And then once those are all done, the next step in that is in January, I will certify everything that has come in. And with all those documents, then they'll put together the ballots, send them back to me, and make sure they're all correct. So that's kind of the process there. Just wanted to be.
Anyone have any questions? Okay. All right, thank you. Is that all?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. Village administrator.
I have a couple items tonight.
Yes, you do.
I want to skip the order, though. I would like to go to the item E and have a presentation of the audited financial statements. There are copies on each trustee's desk, and Lori Salmi is here from Phillips and Salmi to give us a brief overview.
Okay. If you could introduce yourself to the trustees here.
Well, thank you.
I've had the privilege of meeting them.
I have. We both have had the privilege. My name is Lori Salmi, and with me tonight is Tom Burrows and Brianna Salmi. I'm the one speaking primarily, however, they're the ones that perform the field work, and so I need them as my backup and support in case there are any in-depth questions. First, I want to thank you, the members of the board, and also Julie and her team. They have been very easy to work with, and they cooperated. A first-year audit is very difficult. This was our first year to perform this audit. We switched auditors this past year because the prior auditors resigned. They don't perform single audits, federal testing. And it's a difficult process the first year, and I really appreciate everything that Julie and her team did to help us get through it. It made it fairly smooth, and so we appreciate that. I'd like you to turn to page 1 of the audit report. And I just want to give you a couple comments about what an audit is and what we did as part of the audit. And also the single audit, I'm going to ask Tom to have make a couple comments. But on page 1, that is us giving an opinion on your financial statements. That's what the entire audit is about. We're forming an opinion on your individual financial statements. And this opinion is in accordance with the modified cash basis of accounting. Now, your modifications for cash are you have receivables for your enterprise proprietary funds, so your water and your gas. You record your fixed assets, and you record long-term debt. So those are your primary modifications to the pure cash basis of financial reporting. And while I could read this entire report, I'll just tell you, you have an unmodified opinion, which means you have a clean opinion. A, you passed the audit. Now, this report is different from what it would have been in the prior year. Audit standards changed in the between last year and this year, and so the format for this report is very different. So if you pull up last year's and you say, oh, I wonder how they compare to the prior year, they are going to be a different format, and it's purely the change in the accounting standards. That change wanted to have auditors communicate what your responsibilities are as management, and what our responsibilities are as auditors. And your responsibilities as part of management and the board is that you design a system that is has the ability to prevent any type of error in financial statements, and that your internal control system allows for a fair presentation of your financial statements. So that's saying a lot on the first page. On the second page, I want to refer to, we also have other matters that we're required to communicate to you as part of performing an audit. We have to perform certain testing of internal control, and that testing of internal control becomes even more important when you're in a single audit and have a federal audit. So I'm going to let Tom talk about that, and then I'll wrap up.
Good evening. Like Lori said, my name's Tom Burrows. I worked on the audit with Lori and Bree. One of the areas that I tested during the audit was revenue, and this year the village received a substantial grant through ARPA, and that there triggered a single audit or a federal compliance testing audit. So what we do there is we'll go through, and in the case of the village, all of the ARPA revenue that was received was put towards the water treatment plant that was being built. So we tested 40% of all those expenditures there, and there were no findings that were found during the single audit testing, so that was issued with a clean opinion as well.
So the other aspects of the audit that we test, we look at all the revenue that comes through the state sources. Then we also perform procedures on your cash receipts related to billings. We select samples of cash disbursements, and we make sure that the internal controls that have been presented to us as your system of controls are operating effectively. And we test payroll for the same types of questions or concerns. We had no findings this year, which is a compliment to your organization. Normally, the first year we perform an audit, we're going to find something small that's weird, or we're going to find an error that somebody didn't sign off on something. We had no findings this year. We do have a recommendation, and it's a little out of order, but related to payroll. And this is just a recommendation. We didn't find it as a significant concern. But when we were looking at salary increases, there really wasn't a format or a formal procedure for when someone receives a raise. Our recommendation is that something formal is put into the employee's file. That way, when we're testing, we can see that that is an approved expenditure and an approved increase. I think Julie was able to find emails and different items in order to support the information that we were looking at. But in the future, I think it would be better to have a more formal policy for that. In addition, you have a letter that is the required auditor communication letter. And this is a letter that's required on all audits. And I'm not going to go through every step of this. I just want to point out a couple items on this letter. We're required to tell you what your significant accounting standards are, if we had any findings on the audit, if we had any unusual difficulties while performing the audit. All of those were normal. We had nothing unusual. The next item is at the top of page 2. And those are, we're required to communicate any audit entries that we ask to be recorded on the general ledger. And if you look at the dollar amount of those entries, you're going to say, wow, why are they such large dollar amounts? And primarily the journal entries that we asked to be recorded were because your financial statements on a day-to-day basis are on the cash basis, the pure cash. Well, in order to issue the financial statements, we have to get you to that modified cash basis, which is recording those capital assets. So in your board packets on a monthly basis, you're looking at cash transactions. The audit entries we ask to be booked are to get it off of that pure cash basis and record capital assets as an asset. So instead of an expense, it's an asset. It's just putting it in a different bucket on the financial statements. So while, and we always make a recommendation for depreciation expense. We typically handle the recording of the fixed assets, so we make the recommendation for depreciation expense. As a result, the dollar amounts of these journal entries seem significant. We didn't have necessarily errors, it just was putting them into the right bucket. And it's normal and customary as part of performing an audit. In addition, we had one item that we chose to pass on after discussions, and that was regarding capital leases. There is a new audit requirement or accounting standard related to recording an asset and a liability related to capital leases. You have a new lease, but you have not made any payments on it, at least during the fiscal year. We will recommend that that be recorded next fiscal year or in the current fiscal year. It's a timing difference. Just the presentation-wise, it was a much better way to present it from a timing perspective. So we recommended that you pass on it, and you did pass on it. Other than that, we had no disagreements, no other audit findings. So we had no findings, actually. We did have one other recommendation, and that is on those conversion entries between capital outlay items and your general expenses. You have a board policy that was adopted, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, related to capital outlay. And we're recommending that the budget and the capital outlay flow together more and that we can understand and identify your projects. You have had such a significant increase in capital outlay in the past couple of years, and going forward, you plan to have additional projects. So we're recommending that you really budget for those and record them as capital outlay in a certain set of the general ledger. And we talked to Julie about that as well. So other than that, I didn't figure, because your books and records are in such good shape, your monthly reporting is accurate. I didn't think we needed to go through line by line item on the numbers. Just wanted to let you know we had no issues during the audit. But if you want to ask Brianna in the back any questions, she'll squirm.
Trustees, do any of you have any questions?
I just want to clarify, when you talk about the payroll changes, are you just saying that there should be a form that we utilize that then goes in the employee record?
Yep,
Okay.
that's all I'm asking. Put a memo in the file, a standard format. It was approved on X date. It will be effective with this payroll date, something to that effect. With a signature would be nice.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very
All righty,
much.
thank you. Appreciate it. Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, starting at
Julie,
the...
is there anything else you want to add to that, or?
No, I want to thank them. I've already thanked them personally, but they did a great job. They were easy to work with. And have a good Thanksgiving and stay warm where you're going.
Thank you.
Back to the top of the list, we have ordinance 2309, which is an ordinance for the levy and assessment of taxes for the fiscal year beginning May 1, 2022 and ending April 30th, 2023.
If we could have a motion.
So moved. Second.
Okay. Any questions, comments, George?
This is the annual property tax levy. It'll be due to the county by the last Tuesday in December. Total is $2.4 million. It is an increase of 4.99% from last year. As I did speak to you in a memo, our equalized assessed value has come in $35 million higher this year. So in an overall effect, the increase has, what did it come up to be, 0.0003 cents per $100 of assessed value or something along that line. It's a very minimal effect as far as to the taxpayer due to the increase in assessed value. So we are able to capture that 4.99% increase to, in our levy, so that, going down the years, as we increase, we're increasing from a larger base. So it's a good idea, in my opinion, to raise it up to that limit and then go go forward from there.
Any comments? If not, call the roll.
Mennel?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Barrett?
Yes.
Leach?
Yes.
Hilliard?
Yes.
Hilliard?
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next item I have tonight is building improvement grant recommendation from the Business District Commission for Brad Stevens, the owner of L&F Electric at 1309 South Main. Brad is looking to replace the windows on the front of the building. Total project cost of $11,780, which would entitle them to a grant of $5,890.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead.
This used to be the,
Burger King.
I was going to say, some fast food restaurant that was in existence before I lived here. And they are the original single pane windows, so he's looking to replace them with a more insulated window.
Any comments? Call the roll.
Hilliard?
Yes.
Hilliard?
Yes.
Leach?
Yes.
Barrett?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Mennel?
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next item tonight is our annual renewal of our property and liability and work comp insurance package. The overall premium for this would increase $34,445 from last year. Majority of which of that increase is in our property coverage. It's a $19,000 increase for this year. That is due to the fact that overall our values of all of our properties put together increased $3 million, and then we added the $10.8 million for the water treatment, new water treatment facility. There were some other smaller increases, but that's the majority of the increase for this year.
Any questions? Call the roll.
Motion.
No, misunderstood.
I move to approve.
I second that.
Second. Any questions? Okay, call the roll.
Hilliard?
Yes.
Hilliard? Yes. Leach?
Yes.
Mennel?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Barrett? Yes. Motion carries.
And my last item tonight, and probably the largest piece, but relatively basic information here, is resolution to approve a revised personnel handbook, Resolution 1023.
Motion to approve.
I second.
These changes are all based on changes to federal or state law. There's no changes to this that is a different way of enforcing something within the village as far as a policy. It's all just changes in the laws. We have the benefit through Illinois County Risk Management Trust, which is the insurance we just approved. They have attorneys that I can send our personnel handbook to. They review it, say these policies need to be changed. Here is a recommended policy language for that. And that's what these all reflect, is all those changes that they had.
And you have that list of 10 here.
Right. And they're all language changes that, there is some expansion of use of sick leave. There was some expansion of bereavement leave by law. And the rest is more just changes to, policy itself based on law, so.
Any questions? Call the roll.
Mennel?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Barrett?
Yes.
Hilliard? Yes. Hilliard? Yes. Leach?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Chief of Police, welcome back.
Nothing tonight.
Corporation Counsel,
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Director of Public Works,
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Zoning and Code Enforcement,
Nothing tonight, Your Honor.
Village Trustees. Anyone have anything tonight? Sir. If not, we do not need any closed session, so if we could have a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.